The breaking news now regarding singer R. Kelly. We are learning now he has been sentenced to 30 years in prison after being convicted of sex trafficking.
A few moments later.
An outrage and anger tonight after a former Tomball ISD teacher is sentenced to 60 days in jail and 10 years probation. Marco Bodine entered a guilty plea after having a 3-year relationship with a student.
Gather around and bear witness to the face of desperation. Let the sharp rise of female teachers sleeping with students stand as undeniable proof of how desperate the modern woman is. Like Peter Pan, the modern woman is so entranced by the fairy tale life of independence that she would literally seek out lost boys to fill her sexual desires.
Please be a mother.
For only an adolescent child could roleplay in her fairy tale. Now I know what you're asking yourself. Lord Destro, what does this have to do with free tenderloin distribution? Touché. Well, let me explain. We must all master the ability to become three-dimensional thinkers. And like any seasoned investor, we must follow the trends to predict the movement of the market. Like Silicon Valley Bank, the value of modern women is all based on unrestrained speculation.
The mother of all evil is speculation.
Like the great Gordon Gekko warned, unrestrained speculation will cause a financial cataclysm, even though every fool is euphoric about the current bubble.
You know, there's fortunes to be made. Hundreds of millions of dollars betting against this bubble.
Deep down, modern women know the values of their degrees and independence is only based on media speculation. They know that they can only truly be valued and admired by a young, naive teenage boy or girl. When we see, for example, female correction officers sleeping and having kids with inmates, or multiple women having babies with a neighborhood gang assassin or drug dealer, it's not that they are making bad decisions picking men. No, we must conclude that this is just the best men that they are able to get. Now imagine the effects on this bubble when another large group of men decide to exercise their Blue Book vibranium option. In other countries where the average salary falls around $12,000 to $15,000 a year, in countries where the women are feminine, fit, friendly, and more attractive. I'm pretty sure you see where I'm going with this. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our beloved comrades that hit the super chat button in support of free tenderloin distribution. Your sacrifice is truly appreciated. Now before we go any further into this rabbit hole, Lord Destro requires you to push that like button and smash that bell in the name of Cobra, and leave a comment below to appease the nosy algo, because as we all know, Big Brother is always watching. Now let the Jubakari commence.
Our future rests with Destro now.
Having sex with a student. Thanks for joining us this midday. I'm Jared Aarons. This is Jacqueline Ma. We got this picture of her when she was honored last year as one of the best teachers in San Diego County. Now, there's a list of charges that she faces for having an inappropriate relationship with a student under the age of 14.
Let us process this information. Here, we look upon a 34-year-old post-war refugee woman that was physically pursuing a 13-year-old boy. I asked the supposed Cobra jury, is this not desperation? The victim's brother asked their mother, why does this teacher continually text his sibling? And why does she come to his games? This young boy is literally saying, this 34-year-old woman is a creep. This desperate post-war refugee was charged with 14 counts of lewd acts and 3 counts of oral copulation with a minor. Now we can simply dismiss the seriousness of these accusations by just saying she was a creepy, deranged teacher. But Lord Destro believes the plot is much thicker than this. You see, it's clear to your grace that this 13-year-old boy was most likely the best man she was able to obtain. Most women subconsciously know their value, even though they won't say it publicly. After years of dating failure, Jacqueline did the equation, and she came to the sorry conclusion that this boy was her best option. This is the real underlying reason why these cases of female teachers sleeping with students are increasing. As more men continue to leave the matrix and find better options in other countries, we will see more acts of desperation from these modern women in the near future. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Lord Destro, maybe she only wanted this youngling for sex. Well, okay, hold that thought for now. Later on in this video, we will discuss a perfect example of my diagnosis.
I feel really disturbed, disgusted, and I'm in complete shock to know that something like this happened at a school that we're sending our daughters to. You know, so it's shocking, and I don't even know what to say.
Notice how she says this incident is shocking. What is absent is her sense of rage. Now we all know that if this was a 34-year-old man that was accused of lewd acts and oral copulation with a 13-year-old girl, they wouldn't send the police. They would send a stealth bomber to this man's house. What is abundantly clear is that the people, courts, and legal system have turned a blind eye to this form of. For the modern woman is always the victim. For example, let your grace introduce Exhibit A, the curious case of Brittany Samoras.
Brittany is not a predator, and this was not between a young child and Brittany. This was a teenager. The teenager had boundary issues and was obsessed with Brittany. The teenage boy was very aggressive. He even was very persistent in asking Brittany about her birthmarks, molars, or anything else that could be an identifiable piece of information.
Here, we literally see the lawyer blaming the minor, not the adult desperate war refugee. I want you to stop and fully appreciate the significance of this example. This lawyer had the audacity to imply that the 13-year-old boy was the aggressor. If she had the brass nuts to say this about a 13-year-old boy, what do you think your chances are in this kangaroo court? Exactly.
I feel like I was used as a publicity act to gain attention that was often driven by money, motivation from several parties.
This coming weeks after Zamora pleaded guilty, an hour after she begged for mercy during sentencing. Zamora's lawyer then said she would take no questions.
Are you guys really blaming a 13-year-old boy as a victim in this case?
That's not what I said.
Are you honestly saying that Brittany was the victim? You just gonna read that and walk away?
It's funny because it seems like 13 is the magical number that opens up the desperate woman's box. This is the age that gets the juices pumping. This is the age that they see wedding bells and honeymoons. Like I said earlier, this is not about sex, it's about companionship. Now if you still doubt your grace, Lord Destro, let me introduce Exhibit B. Let us look upon the Moses of the desperate teacher movement, the curious case of Mary Kay Letourneau. Remember, another 34-year-old teacher like Jacqueline Mao sleeping with a 13-year-old youngling. Don't be fooled. These numbers are not a simple coincidence. We are now thinking on a three-dimensional level. Nothing is by coincidence.
In 1997, Mary Kay Letourneau begged a Seattle judge for her freedom just months after the former teacher had been arrested for having sex with her student, Vili Fulau. He was 13 when their relationship began. She was 34, a wife, a mother. Letourneau, who gave birth to their child in May of that year, pleaded guilty to second-degree child rape. Vili insists he was not her victim and described in court their every encounter.
We had sex in the gym. We had sex in the girls' bathroom. We had sex in the classroom.
Let's get some background on Mary Kay. She was a divorced, single mother of 4 kids. I ask you, what type of man, especially in the 1990s, would seriously take on a woman like this? I want to stress this key point. It's not as simple as she was a creepy, deranged woman. The fact is, she had no options. Now we know today how many single mothers with multiple bodies there are on the market. Trust me, these women face the same impossible mission of finding a suitable man to take on all of their baggage.
You are being granted the opportunity for treatment in the community rather than in prison. Whether you stay out of prison is completely within your hands.
She was released in January of 1998, and less than a month later, Seattle police picked up the ex-teacher and the boy having sex in a car.
Now after her release, Mary Kay ended up marrying the youngling, and she also had 2 kids with him. This is the fairy tale ending a lot of desperate post-war refugees dream about. This phenomenon will continue in the coming days, and the legal system will begin to normalize these acts, because the legal system will always bend to fit the needs of the modern woman, even as she spirals out of control. There is only one defense, only one counterattack you have at your disposal. That, my friends, is the Vibranium Blue Book. With that, Your Grace, Lord Destro, rest his case.
He ain't lying. 31-year-old woman who had sex with a 13-year-old boy and got pregnant and had his baby.
As a defense attorney who's had this case before, except the opposite, meaning the client was a male, the alleged victim was a female. I had a guy who was 28, the alleged victim was 14. The sex was consensual, except that it wasn't legally because a 14-year-old doesn't have the ability to consent under the law. And in that case, the client was facing a 10-year mandatory sentence. Prosecutor wouldn't budge. It was 10 years, no ifs, ands, or buts. So it's shocking that in the case described here, that the female defendant, it got off without jail time, without anything, even though she was pregnant, even though the evidence seemed to have been a slam dunk conviction. Just doesn't seem fair here.
But wait a minute. You didn't smash the bell and press the like button. Blasphemy. And although you will never be worthy of a monarch such as myself, Lord Destro would suggest that you poor fools at least give oligarchy a try. So evil, Lord Destro has spoken.